So many of you know, but for some of you who may not, the Mahayana, which is what is practiced in Tibet, also in China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, the Mahayana tradition, the great vehicle tradition, which arose in India about 400 or 500 years after the time of the Buddha. Buddha's word is divided, and the Buddhist practices are divided into early Buddhism, we call Nikaya Buddhism, sometimes called Hinayana Buddhism. We try to avoid that term, though, because it means lesser vehicle. The early Buddhist traditions, or sometimes we call them the Southern Buddhist traditions, have a body of literature known as the Sutras. And then the Mahayana, which begins, as I said, several hundred years after the time of the Buddha, has other sutras and also tantras. So the entire collection of the Buddha's word, as far as the Tibetan traditions go, there is a body of literature known as the sutras and a body of literature known as the tantras. And also when we talk about practice in the Mahayana tradition, we speak about sutra practice, which is what we've been doing when we cultivate mindfulness, the kind of love and compassion that we have been talking about. All of this, those of you who have been reading Words of My Perfect Teacher or Tantric Practice in Nyingma, the foundational practices that we do, all of these are topics of the central topics of the Mahayana and part of sutra practice and also preparatory for tantric practice. There are subdivisions among these that I won't go into today. For now, we can just think in terms of sutra and tantra. And generally speaking, one practices these kinds of practices once we have some basic familiarity with Buddhism, some basic familiarity with the cultivation of attention, a heartfelt connection with Buddhist tradition, and really a wish to develop the good qualities that are intrinsic in our own Buddha nature by cultivating a particularly strong relationship with a particular enlightened being, in this case, Green Tara. Green Tara, Longchenpa says that these enlightened beings that we have all around us, these are actually expressions of reality. They are expressions of the wondrous qualities of love and wisdom and power that are actually present in reality itself, but not necessarily manifest. That means they're also present in our own nature. So in cultivating a connection with Tara, we are cultivating a connection with our own capacity for the qualities that she particularly brings forth, the quality of very, very tender caring, like a green shoot, just tender and fresh and responsive and sweet and swift. As we sing to her, when we sing her refuge, she is known for swiftly. She promised that she would just immediately come when anybody called and help. She comes and she helps. She's the energy of responsiveness. She's green, which is the color of the essential color of the wind element. And like the wind, she just comes in. She arrives swiftly as needed. There's much that we could say about Tara, just giving you a little distillation, okay? As a being, she's a being and she's a quality. And she is neither something completely other than ourselves, nor identical, of course, with our ordinary selves. And the purpose of this practice is to connect with her, which means to connect with this quality in ourselves, this enlightened quality in ourselves. And we are doing this particularly through the Yösel Dorje Sangze, which is in the tradition of Adzom Trukpa, who died in 1924, who himself had direct visions of Jigme Lingpa. Let's see, so that's Adzom Trukpa, and this tanka here, a very famous figure who brings the Longchen Nyingtik, heart essence of the vast expanse, which is this transmission, which really goes back to Guru Rinpoche in the 8th century and then Longchen Ropcham in the 14th century, and Jigme Lingpa in the 18th century. That's Jigme Lingpa. I don't know if you can see it where you're sitting. Jigme Lingpa is in the lower right of this tanka here, below Adzom Trukpa, and on the lower left is Longchenpa. These are very great figures in the Tibetan tradition, particularly in the Nyingma tradition. This is also Longchenpa, this figure here in orange at this tanka. Adzom Trukpa had powerful visions of Jigme Lingpa. Jigme Lingpa had powerful visions of Longchen Ropcham. And Longchen Ropcham was directly predicted by Guru Rinpoche. So for us, this lineage is very close, even though it goes all the way back to Guru Rinpoche in the 8th century. And we received this through our teacher, Adzom Pela Rinpoche, who in his previous life was in fact the son, the flesh and blood son of Adzom Trukpa. Adzom Trukpa had some very famous children. One of them was Pema Wangel, and Pema Wangel was the previous life of Adzom, our teacher, Adzom Rinpoche. Adzom Trukpa, you may know already that in the Tibetan tradition, great figures like Longchenpa, like Jigme Lingpa, like Adzom Trukpa, like Adzom Rinpoche himself, like Namkhe Norpa Rinpoche, they are known as treasure discoverers, treasure revealers. And texts, words, liturgies descend into their minds. They discover them in their minds. They're considered to have been planted there by Guru Rinpoche. This is a very particular style of revelation and of textual production. It's not like they just decide to write it. It's not like it is a situation where they are being directly fed by the prophecy that they would find such and such a text, and they do. So Adzom Trukpa, the Longchen Nyingtik, heart essence of the vast expanse, the Longchen Nyingtik is the revealed treasure of Jigme Lingpa in the 18th century. The secret treasures of the luminous Vajra is a revealed treasure which is considered in Tibet like the child of the heart essence of the vast expanse, because Adzom Trukpa had powerful visions of Jigme Lingpa and came forth with this. So this is the transmission that we're in, heart essence of the vast expanse child, which is secret treasures of the luminous Vajra. And there are many texts in this tradition, and the green Tara that we do is from this, the luminous Vajra. Secret treasures of the luminous Vajra. It's secret because generally we don't recognize or understand its real meaning, which ultimately is our own true nature, which is what we're always looking to understand. In that sense, it's secret. It's a treasure because it actually contains the base, the path, and the fruit of the Buddha's enlightened intention. In other words, it's a complete path. And it's a Vajra. Vajra means something that is unchanging and indestructible. So this is a very powerful, precious sadhana, which comes with great blessings, and which is also kind of our family heritage, is how we feel about it, because we're very close to Adzom Rinpoche. Even if you haven't met him, we're very close. That means we're all very close. That means you're his grandchildren, whether you know it or not. And this was his father in his previous life, plus his spiritual teacher. So it's very close. It's like your being on your grandma's knee and hearing, what the family has been cherishing all these years. So Tara is, as I mentioned, this exquisite expression of tenderness, like the fresh rain on a green field. If you think of early spring when the fresh grass is green and supple and just bends with the wind, and a whole field of green is just swaying in the wind, it's kind of very tender and very sweet. and very appealing, very nourishing. All of these things. Tara is all of these things. She's swift, she cares, she is a very particular expression of compassion, very powerfully connected with Avalokiteshvara. So how do we connect with her? Well, actually, we'll do a guided practice to just begin to sense a little bit what she's about. And in this, in following the liturgy, we'll do that first, just to kind of get a feel, because it's not just about words, it's not just about ideas, it's not just about singing a song or even about sitting up straight and having your attention really, it's really about connecting with this quality, this exquisite, loving quality, which is important to remind oneself is actually part of you already. That's our logos in this tradition, that everything that we are seeking, that we practice so hard to, quote, get, we actually already have it, but we don't know it, or we're simply, maybe even kind of know it, but we're not able to live it because we're obstructed by our own ignorance of various kinds. Tara is particularly famous for rescuing one from fear. You know the way you feel completely at ease when you look over a fresh green field in flower and health, and it's just so appealing and restoring. She's a great restorer with her fresh wind of tender caring, and she releases us from fear. The traditional texts talk about how she protects from fear of snakes and elephants and lions, but we're mostly not so afraid of those things. We're afraid of, well, it's good actually in preparation for this retreat to consider what it is you are afraid of. We're all afraid of something, mostly our own minds. We're afraid of failure, we're afraid of always being fearful. We're afraid of not measuring up. We're afraid of being unloved. We're afraid of getting old. We're afraid that we're going to die before we want to, and we never really want to. We have a lot of fears, which we spend a lot of time covering up. So this is a time to say, okay, yes, I have fears, but it's okay because, it's okay for me to be in touch with them. Usually being in touch with fear is really quite something we really avoid. We don't like to feel fear. We'd rather feel anger than fear, as we've talked about many times. Fear is a very unpleasant feeling. But, when you're in your mama's arms, you can just cry your heart out. Or when you're with your good friend, your lifelong friend, or somebody you trust, your brother, your sister, then it's okay. We say, we can let our hair down, we can cry, we can just tremble, it's okay because somebody's there to help us. So Tara gives us that opportunity. It's okay. She's going to help. Whatever it is, she's there. She's there, and that means some part of our own capacity is there as well. We're going to begin by taking refuge in her, and expressing that I want to be free from fear. It's right there in the text. To be free from fear and suffering, I take refuge and I trust. So trust, when we do retreats on this, sometimes trust is a really important issue that one really, wants to deal with. Fear and trust. Fear is a lack of trust. So we're cultivating capacity to trust. And in order to trust, we have to be kind of soft ourselves. So if we go around and say, I'm okay, nothing wrong with me, that's not trust, right? That's like armor. So this is trust. Now, none of this is easy, and I'm just laying out for you some of the riches of the practice. Whatever comes up for you this weekend, you're mostly we're still learning the practice, but at least you know where it's headed and what the compass of it is. Then we develop bodhicitta, wishful active bodhicitta, sometimes called aspiring and actual bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means we're practicing to come to the full flower of our spiritual potential, which Buddhists call Buddhahood, so that we can benefit all beings. That's why we're here. That's why we're here, to be free from fear and suffering, because that happens along the path. Really, we want to be able to benefit everyone. And that's our wish. And then when we actually begin to engage in the training to become that kind of person, that's active bodhicitta. So we remember that. And you're familiar with this already from the foundational practices, which is why we do the foundational practices first. And if you're not so familiar with it, then it is part of your path to go back to the foundational practices and really, develop this so that the next time you do Tara, you have it. But it's fine to learn about Tara now. It helps you understand where all this is headed. And we take a vow to protect all beings. Ooh, remind me, we actually have this in Spanish. So we feel, I'll do a guided walk us through this. We begin by feeling that Tara is in front of us. So that means you look at this picture, you see what Tara looks like, and you just feel that she's there. Now that itself, of course, is a whole practice to get used to be able to seeing, feeling, sensing, imagining. But anyway, with your heart, you feel she's here, okay? She's here. She's looking at you and you're looking at her. And she's loving you and you're loving her. And she is also mirroring to you your own real potential. Very important aspect. So when we say that, Tara dissolves. And into us, we dissolve. We go, za, hong, bum, ho. Everything dissolves. Everything is empty. And then out of this emptiness, now this is a part that takes background and familiarity, but in principle what is happening is that, so you've just developed a mind of refuge and a mind of compassion, which is also somehow connected with the truth of emptiness, because we've dissolved into space. And out of that, whatever you happen to understand about being insubstantial, being unreified, whatever love is impelling you to this practice, which is dynamizing your mind, you light up and you arise as a letter tum. It's green tum. One moment, it's there. And then we sing this description, really, recognizing that given that everything is empty, really everything is pure, and there's a mansion beyond seen seer, that means somehow it's non-dualistic. And in the middle of it, we are Tara. So this is a very special thing about this kind of practice, about tantric practice, is that we become green Tara. This is not considered presumptuous. This is a very special technique to overcome our very benighted idea that we are ordinary, that we are mere flesh and blood, that we are our body, Okay, so you arise as Tara. One face, two hands, peaceful smile. All of this has symbolism. And you're basically just describing yourself. Then we do some gestures of respect to her. We're just going to sing it through. So really the whole thing, and then we make offerings. And this is on page 4 of my edition. We invite Tara like an honored guest in the style of traditional India. So when an honored guest comes, you give them water so they can wash their feet. Or first water for drinking, argyam, then water to wash their feet, padyam, pupe, you offer flowers, you give incense and light and perfume and so on. And there are hand gestures, mudras, that we do to symbolize that we are offering this to Tara. But we're not offering it to her as if we are other than her. Obviously, there's a lot to understand here. Okay, I'm sketching it out. And you can just, whatever you get, it's fine. This is how practice begins. In time, we'll do a Tara retreat and really go over all of this. But it's a great blessing to be part of the Drupcha. And you will learn a lot just through doing that. And we sing her praises and her qualities. And then most of the practice actually is we recite her mantra, and there are 2 mantras. on page 5. Om Taritam Soha, Om Taritam Soha. So while we say Om Taritam Soha, you feel that the mantra, Om Taritam Soha, is moving around your heart, actually counterclockwise, and green rays of light are going out to all of the enlightened beings, but especially to all of the Taras throughout space. Throughout space means that your entire imagination is filled with Tara. There's nothing else, right? Wherever there is space, there is Tara. That means your whole dimension of experience is just Tara Pure Land now, and you're sending out light, offering to her, to many, many zillions of Taras all around. Because as we're practicing living in an enlightened universe, which we actually live in, but we don't see it that way. And then light comes back from her, blessing us. It's always this exchange. It's giving and receiving. It's giving. It's kind of like how reality is. We offer, and Tara immediately comes back to us with blessings. And then when we're all blessed up like this, we do the longer mantra, Om Tare Tutare Turi Soha, Om Tare Tutare Turi Soha, Om Tare Tutare Turi Soha. And at that time, the 5 colors of light are expanding from this mantra, which is still circling around our heart. There's kind of a dynamism, right? This is circling around your heart. Now, of course, over the 2 days that we do this, you have time, right? You have time to kind of think about the mantra, think about the light, think about the Tara. You can kind of move through it step by step while you're saying the mantra, because it's a learning process. We understand that. It's a learning process. So you could start by just thinking about the tum. Then you can feel that light's going out. So you can kind of teach yourself the practice by mentally going through the parts of it, thinking of yourself as green, thinking of yourself as light as you're saying the mantra. And the mantra is a tremendous support, because the mantra is the actual essential sound and vibration of Tara herself. So it's not like your imagination is dry, or you're putting together a house of cards. Your energy, that's what's so powerful about the Drupcha. We're chanting, most of what we do all day long is chant this mantra. And so it begins to set up a certain kind of energy. So light goes out, light comes back. Light goes out offering health and happiness and whatever is desired to all beings. So you are fulfilling your wish here as a bodhisattva, right? You're sending out 5 colors of light, and you're enlightening and illuminating the entire universe of living beings. And you can be as specific as you want. You can go to the hells, the hungry ghosts, you can go to specific people. So we do that. Then we do a purification of speech, which some of you are familiar with. And then we praise her again, and we close. So that's very, very brief. Of course, there's more to say about Tara and her story and so on. But in some ways, it's very simple. And then however much you understand, you understand. And the way practice yields understanding. And then you might have other questions that we can talk about in a moment. You can spend a little time between now and the Drupcha, or even between now and tomorrow, just looking at Tara. Just looking at her. Yeah. Rinpoche has a very particular connection with Tara. Jetsun Kachiwamo, his sister, whose exquisite voice, I think most of you have heard, she's considered an emanation of Tara. So, Tara's in our family. I mean, she's family. She's family for us, so that makes her family for you. Yeah?
I looked up a couple of years ago, Tara. There was a green Tara, blue Tara,
Yeah.
red Tara, white Tara. Are they all the same? Or do they have different?
They have somewhat different qualities. There's 21 Taras, traditionally. And green Tara, however, is she includes all of them. There's a lot to say about Tara. We don't have time. I'm just trying to introduce you to the essential of the practice so that you can have your own feelings about it and her and your own relationship to tenderness, and then it develops from there. you know. And once for those of you who are quite new to Ngondro, the foundational practices, you know, in terms of your path, we really want you to get very grounded in that. And then you can turn your attention to Tara. But still, she's so lovely. Adzam Rinpoche said, okay, everybody wants to do Tara. They may not want to do the foundational practices like they're supposed to, but they want to do Tara. So Adzam Rinpoche said, okay, you know, people can do Tara, because at least you get some feeling. It's all part of the same family of practices.
Om Tare Tamo So, Om Tare Tamo So, Om Tare Tamo So, Om Tare Tamo So.